From my intuition and experience, less intimacy compliments you. Way less or way more due to guilt cover-up. But either way, much less interested in everything about you. Vague or way too detailed answers to questions like, where have you been? Changes the style of text, use of words, taste in clothes, and music. Always on the phone leaves stuff like some jewelry that you gave them that they used to wear 247 in the house. This is where I started suspecting my ex-BIL cheating on my sis. What do you think of this story? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. Enjoy. Serious from personal experience. What are the signs your partner is cheating? Story 1. Drip feeding. When something originally innocuous gradually turns out to be less and less so. I was out with the girls. I was out with a mixed group. Actually, it was Dave and his mates. Actually, it was just Dave. Actually, we weren't out. We were at his... Nothing happened. Okay, we kissed. Okay, we slept together, but it was just once. Okay, I've been fudging him for a year. Obviously, it's obvious by the end. But the lesson is that by the second drip, you can tell something is up, and it's going to turn out much worse. There are never only 2 drips. Answer: so much this. Even worse is the gnawing feeling after each drip that you still don't know everything. In the beginning, you brush it off as your own insecurity and needless jealousy. She'd never do anything like this. You are being a jerk, and confronting her might only push her away from you. But wait, another drip. Still, this is it, right? Just a white lie, nothing to worry about. Yet your inner voice gets louder and louder. More worries arise about what she says can be believed. Clearly, you're overreacting. You try to convince yourself, but a battle between years of built-up mutual trust and a sense of a fast-approaching deadline wages in your head, and trust is slowly giving in and crumbling bit by bit. That's when another drip hits your head, and there's nothing to sweet talk anymore. All your worries suddenly become true, and what remains is a smoldering pile of ashes that used to be your relationship. I am sure I still don't know anything, but I don't even want to, because after a while, you eventually start to question everything. How long has this been going on? How much of this relationship was fake? Which smile genuine and which was spent thinking about the other one? Which happy moments were truly because of us and not because of me, her, and him? And I still want to cherish what time we had had together and remember the good times instead of wondering how much of it was not all that good. Story 2. My dad wasn't my partner, but I busted him for cheating on my mother when I suspected that him talking on the phone in the driveway for a half hour each night after she went to bed was not business related. I don't even know if I should have done that. The marriage ended. Answer: I once accidentally heard my father's conversation with his girlfriend. Cheating. I was near my dad. We're in the same room. He knows I'm around. His phone sound must be higher than usual. Phone rang and Dad opened it. The girl on the line was talking with a girly, flirty tone until my dad replied, "Oh, you called Sister Amantha," and she suddenly changed her voice to a formal, dull one. After that, I listen more carefully whenever she calls him, and every time Dad tells TJ code they set up. He thinks he's being so sneaky about it. Story 3. Every relationship I had that ended because I found out they were cheating had one common denominator. They frequently accused me of cheating, like all the time. I have never cheated. For example, my last ex accused me of making plans to go cheat on them with an actor from TV. I didn't even know the actor's real name. I just thought the actor was cute. Cue huge fight. Find out later they've been cheating on me with, "Just a friend, don't worry." 5 years later, the ridiculousness of it still strikes me from time to time. Answer: my ex accused me of cheating talking to other guys several times in a matter of months, and it had crossed my mind that maybe he was. He also used to repeatedly say that he has never cheated and never will. I never insisted on looking, but he was quite protective with his phone. This same guy slept at his ex's house. They have a child, and I never even raised an eyebrow. Didn't accuse him because, had no proof. He didn't have any proof, but accused me. Go figure. I am so naive. Story 4. When my ex-husband cheated on me, he just seemed to work a lot more. And during periods where it was phone, online only, he wouldn't let me say no to intimacy. It was no longer an option. Also, everything I did was wrong or awful or stupid, and I was the crazy, lazy meanie he never did wrong. Although that could have been more down to his personality than the cheating. Story 5. Being edgy or secretive about their phone calls, keeping their phone on silent, sudden increase in grooming new clothes, may be irrelevant for certain personalities, being overly irritable with you for no reason, lack of interest in intimacy with you, a general feeling of becoming more distant, being out of the house more often than normal, going through a lot of money and not telling you where it's going, accusing you of cheating, going outside for phone calls, and hanging up. If you follow being very overprotective about who you hang out with, finding them snooping through all your stuff. In my defense, I was in my early 20s, only my second long-term relationship. I should have seen those as giant red flags. But yeah, lesson learned. Edit it. Yep, I do know this isn't 100 a solid test for fidelity. Yep, you could point out any one of these signs, and by itself, it doesn't mean cheating. Yes, some people are just private people. It's more important if these things listed are changes from the norm. This is just what I noticed from personal experience. The more boxes get ticked, the more concerned I would be personally. Answer, you are 100 correct. I had 2 relationships in which my GF cheated on me. Both of them did all the above. The second time it happened, I was very aware of the changes and caught her very quickly. No one thing is to trust your instinct. When I came back from visiting my mother, I came back to a GF who was overly anxious to see me. I knew something was off because she never got that excited. Then my radar went into alert mode and I started noticing everything she was doing. I learned her cell phone password by watching her, and when she slept, I got her phone and found out she was cheating on me with her boss. I woke her up and amped at her. When she fell asleep, I left her a note and never spoke to her again. She texts me at least once a year asking stupid questions trying to get me to respond. I haven't blocked her because the texts are amusing and painful. It's good to remember how shallow people are. Her desperate texts are a reminder of that. Story 6. Fearful of any lasting evidence of the relationship. I was with someone for many years and was blissfully unaware she had been cheating on me for an extended time. A number of months before she left me for one of her other guys, she stopped wanting to take pictures of us together. This was in the days of film cameras, and I didn't pick up on this sudden change in behavior because I dislike having my picture taken and thought she was finally respecting my opinion, as well as saving a lot of money. Despite that, I suggested we get a portrait done of us together, as I was planning on asking her to marry me and thought it would be nice to have. I still clearly remember her telling me she thought it wasn't a good idea because what if we ever split up? It blew my mind, but I had some horrible stuff going on in my life that was distracting me. After she broke up with me, she told any mutual acquaintances that we'd been together for only a year, not almost 6 as we really had been, and pointed to a lack of pictures as proof I was a crazy ex obsessed with her. It never occurred to her that people who knew us all those years would be willing to say that we had been together for years, or that I still had pictures from our years together. Also, she started asking me if I would date this person or that person, and letting me know if she approved of the choices. Apparently, she planned to control my dating life after she dumped me, but that's a tale for another thread. Answer. Apparently, she planned to control my dating life after she dumped me. I've been through this too. It's rough because she was trying to pawn you off on someone else because she probably did feel guilty about cheating, wanting to leave. But she was a bad person, so instead of being honest, she thought if you just dated someone else too, it would make her feel less bad. Story 7. In my previous relationship, I was passing her phone to her, and it was unlocked, and her messenger app was open. I glanced at the screen, but noticed a message from a guy that had XX at the end. She would barely send X's to me, never mind anyone else. So I immediately went, wait a second. She got annoyed at me without me having to say what I was referring to, she knew, saying, if you really think I'm cheating, just leave, whilst going into the bathroom. Answer, I had that one. I called her on it and told her to leave. She came back and explained I was an idiot and stayed with her. She continued to cheat, and eventually we broke up. Worst birthday ever. I mean, if you're gonna cheat on someone, then at least don't text the other guy while you're spending half an hour, also a warning sign without good reason, at your boyfriend's house on his birthday. Story 8. Personal experience. If someone is extremely possessive or keeps bringing up what would happen if their partner cheated or just seems overly bent out of shape about cheating, they're probably a cheater. This couple I know, sweetest girl I've ever met, extremely nice, very loyal. She was honestly head over heels for her husband even after years of marriage. It was genuinely one of those things that made me want a relationship. I wanted someone to love me that much. The guy would always say things like, if you cheated on me, it would destroy me. Harmless at first, but he said it weakly. He knew her phone password and convinced her that he was always, at any time, allowed to look at her phone, to flip through her texts and pictures. If she ever changed her password to anything, he had to know immediately. Facebook, emails, phones. History must never be cleaned on the computer. Things like that. When she was talking with me to plan his surprise party, We were using code words and she was too suspicious about it, and he went through our messages thinking we were fooling around behind his back. He made her cut contact with me to prove that we weren't. I wasn't allowed to talk to her, visit, call, text, email, or even use Facebook. I let it go because, well, the only option was to let it go or get mad and make things worse. 4 months later, she called me. He told her he lost his phone and wanted to get a new one. So he got a new phone, new number, new plan, said he'd cancel the other one. He even told her, as show of trust, he would let her root through his phone whenever she wanted as well. His new phone, of course. She was cleaning one day and found his old phone. She was about to bring it to him and show him, but her alarms went off, so she went through it first. Password protected, but same password for his new phone. She got in. Yup, he'd been cheating for a while. Absolutely destroyed her. So, if they are so incredibly defensive about cheating, they themselves might be guilty of it and are thinking, if I cheated, my partner might cheat. Story 9. Signs I knew was she was being a little more distant. We had this among connection. And about the time she went to a friend's birthday party was about the same time she started being distant. I chopped it up to being just past the honeymoon phase. Another was she suddenly had a lot of little events come up. She was usually a stay-at-home play games type of person that suddenly wanted to go out for a bit with friends or had to visit family, which she never did so subtly in changes of plans. Lastly, was a little scummy, but being suspicious will do that to a person. She will add 2 or 3 guys every day on Facebook around her area, and one in particular, I didn't care for. It seemed like her type, so to speak, and my gut was right, because a few days later, I got a call from her father telling me she went out on a date with this guy who was a city over, and she was dressed to impress. Broke my heart, but I have profound respect for that man. Answer, I would too. I found out my second girlfriend was cheating on me via one of her best friends and her mom. They both were not only disgusted with her behavior, but felt bad for me because I had always treated her well and genuinely liked me. I'm still in touch with both of them today. Her mom acts like a mom to me and became friends with this ex after 4 years of not talking. She tried to rekindle it once, but I shut her down. Story 10. All these out-of-character signs occurring at the same time was what alerted me to his cheating. Suddenly starts having a passcode on his phone and gets agitated if you accidentally see his screen whilst he's using his phone. Says he's coming home at a certain time, then shows up 9 hours later with no explanation and gets agitated when asked. Starts gaslighting, manipulating, screaming, compulsive lying, and verbally abusing on a daily basis. Starts going to the gym daily, even after a 12-hour work shift that involves hard labor. Starts being distant and refusing to communicate, screams at you that he doesn't want to talk at all, not even about the weather. All his friends, none who know me personally, start hating me out of nowhere, speaking ill of me to my face and behind my back, and wishing that I die. Starts to make future plans, including overseas trips that don't involve me. Starts becoming obsessed with adult content despite being strictly religious all his life. Starts eyeing off other women in public in front of me. Starts comparing me to other women and threatening me with other women. Starts getting physically abusive upon seeing me upset about his above actions. Turns out, it was revealed that he was on dating sites and was planning to send me over 700 kilometers away interstate against my will and pursue a relationship with another woman in his city and send me money weekly and visit me on weekends to keep up the facade of a marriage. Yes, this man was my husband. Now, advice to everyone out there. You can never change someone who sees no wrong in their actions. How someone treats you is a reflection of who they are. Answer. My ex did most of these, except hitting the gym and planning to send me places because we were dirt poor. I could never prove it, but I would have bet my kid's college fund that he was seeing this whore at work. We had 400 go missing from his coat pocket one day, and he would get pissed if I asked about it. He swore it was stolen, but that was all we were allowed to discuss on the matter. Story 11. I think a lot of these responses are subjective, but basically boil down to this. Be aware of uncharacteristic changes in their behavior. Has your partner had a lock on their phone since day one? Probably not something to worry about. Have they not had a password on their phone and all of a sudden, for seemingly no reason, they do? Probably something to worry about. Story 12. Here's the red flag I had. Her parents were quite well off and always gave us the best Xmas gifts. One Xmas, she got the usual lavish stuff. I got barely a thing, and what I did get was really thoughtless. 2 days later, I discovered she was cheating with my best friend. Her parents knew. Story 13. Her phone was in her hand constantly. I once stood up and walked past her to see what she was typing. It was this. Looks nice, like you. They had started to hang out a lot, going for long dog walks, going to the opera, going for dinner. She also started to be vile towards me and pick arguments out of nowhere. She had been saying things like, "Don't you think tea is hot? What would you do if we had an affair?" She had stopped showing any interest in me whatsoever. She had cheated on her last girlfriend several times, and I have no doubt that she had cheated on me more than once during our time together. Yeah, lesson learned. Answer. One of the signs, looking back in hindsight, was that my ex stopped me from going to his place anymore. He lived in a large share house, and after the second year, he would come up with so many different excuses as to why I couldn't go over there. Then he just flat out said no. He also would pick fights with me for no reason and get angry and frustrated at me over nothing. Then out of the blue, he texted me saying we need to take a break, and he ignored me for 2 weeks straight. He then came crawling back asking for forgiveness and some bullshit explanation. Well, stupidly, I took him back and things were good for a while. I ended up breaking up with him a year later, and then put all the pieces together a few years after that when I bumped into one of his former housemates, and he innocently asked if I was the girlfriend before or after Anna, who lived at the share house. Yeah, he was my boyfriend the entire time that he lived at that share house. Story 14. Fun topic. D, from my intuition and experience, less intimacy compliments you. Way less or way more due to guilt cover-up. But either way, much less interested in everything about you. Vague or way too detailed answers to questions like, where have you been? Changes the style of text, use of words, taste in clothes, and music. Always on the phone leaves stuff like some jewelry that you gave them that they used to wear 247 in the house. This is where I started suspecting my ex-BIL cheating on my sis. Story 15. I had been dating a girl for 3 years, and we had just moved in together when she decided to cheat. We both drank way too much at the time, liked to drink a lot, and we would often go out or go to parties with mutual friends at her request. After about 3 months in our new place, I broke my foot, crashed racing motocross. I didn't want to go out and hobble around, and that's when I noticed changes in her behavior. Anyway, what I noticed was she no longer wanted to spend time at home with me like we used to, watch TV together after work, play video games, etc. Started getting rides with a mutual male friend of ours, Matt, to parties or to hang out with other people every day after work. Asked her and said I was worried about Matt and her spending so much time together. She gave me the classic, "We are just friends. You're being paranoid," etc. Since we used to go out together a lot, I rationalized it away. Began to constantly text way more than usual while around me, ignoring me when we were hanging out, and being very careful to always keep her phone out of my reach, where I can't read over her shoulder. Intimacy life went from 3 to 5 times a week to like once per month, and only when I begged her for it for hours. Once the intimacy have dropped off, I pretty much suspected she was cheating. Till then, I always found a way to rationalize her behavior or blame myself and my foot. So I was fed up with all my suspicions one night, and after she got home, way after she said she would be home, I pretended to be asleep in bed while she proceeded to drunkenly pass the fudge out. So I went to her nightstand and looked for her phone, opened it, didn't have a password, and was treated to weeks of text logs between her and Matt. "When can I see you again? I love you, blah, blah, blah." So then I woke her up, confronted her with her phone. She broke down, saying I was the one she really wanted, told her to GTFO of our room and sleep on the couch. We continued to live together for a few months until she decided to move in with her dad in a different state after not being able to get her own place. Anyway, that's my story. Thanks for reading, Internet Strangers. Answer, living in the same house but separate rooms is the worst. The second bed was shoot, so we even shared the bed for a while after deciding we were splitting up. Had 2 attempts at let's just fudge because we're horny. Most dead and awful intimacy ever. I couldn't finish and felt like shoot about myself. Completely eliminate my intimacy drive to the point where I didn't even feel like self-care for almost a month. Story 16. Over the time span of 2 weeks, mine was blatantly obvious. I ask her where she is, and I get, "It's none of my business." And "I'm a grown woman," thrown at me. Shoot, I was getting some Thai food up the street, and all I wanted to know is if you wanted me to order some more food when you come back. Well, more pad CEO for me, meanie. Then eventually the big nonverbal fudge you she'd give was that she'd be gone for days at a time, and she knows darn well that I fudge dislike sleeping alone, so I had fun tossing and turning. And she was dumb enough to leave her iPad with iCloud enabled at home, and it turns out it's our fudge immigration attorney. No NSFW pics, just her in Vegas. So her home warming gift was a stack of divorce papers. Thankfully, it was uncontested. We were adults about our possessions, and thank God I didn't have kids with her like I was planning to. but it still fudged me up. Edit grammar and clarification. I was taking a break while moving and tired AF. Ironically, from a hellhole that I hastily moved into due to the divorce and nobody to split the rent with. And my then apartment's landlord didn't like the idea of renting out my living room. Although in the LA area, it's becoming pretty darn common. And I didn't see why not since the living room was huge. But my new place is 200x better. Story 17. Sudden unexplained changes in 1. Phone usage. 2. Hygiene, grooming, and personal fitness. 3. Intimacy. 4. Spending habits. 5. General mood. It's the inexplicable nature of changes that's a real indication, though. All of these things could be impacted by something like someone starting a new job. It's when there's no apparent reason, or they're cagey about the reason, that it becomes suspect. Story 18. For me, I could tell he was growing increasingly distant. He would tell me I wasn't putting the effort into our relationship, but when I tried to be more attentive and loving, he would withdraw. And then one awesome night, I asked him if there was someone else. He had a panic attack which left him unable to breathe, and I and his uncle rushed him to the ER. For 2 weeks after, he would send me pictures of the toll the attack had taken on his eyes and skin. I felt like a monster. It turned out that I had just hit the nail on the head and unnerved him. The worst part is that his whole family knew and had been helping him hide it because they thought I was an awful person due to some lies he had been feeding them. His uncle was paying for the secret cell phone. Everyone was encouraging him to leave me for her, not knowing I had been paying the majority of the household expenses and had been doing everything I could think of to make him happy. He also engaged in some horrible mind games, including disappearing with a gun to make me think he had gone off to eliminate himself. There's more, but that is easily the most traumatizing of the lot. When I found out and asked why, he said I just didn't love him enough. Story 19. From personal experience, she started getting weirdly jealous for no reason and began accusing me of cheating on her. It was so out of place, and after a few arguments with her, it was obvious to me what was happening. So I waited until everything was just normal and calm, and I sat her down and asked her how long she had been cheating on me. She tried to deny it one time, and I just told her to stop lying and try the truth. She started crying immediately. I just stayed calm and told her that we couldn't be together anymore, but there was no point in either of us getting angry and fighting. That was pretty much it. We broke up and she moved out. Story 20. Being extra careful with phone content, my ex even dared me to check his phone because I was complaining about him always checking mine. I made a show of perusing his folders, and I found a folder full of one person's messages. I think he even used a neutral guy name. At that point, my woman intuition was itching ever so slightly, so I joked that I'd call the number. He said to go ahead, so I called the number, but he still had that smug, confident look on his face. Someone picked up on the other line, and I recognized it to be my previous editor-in-chief from my Univ pub. My ex started to lose it when I said hello. He can't grab his phone, so he made sure that my former EIC heard my name so she won't talk anymore. I should have thrown his phone to the wall. Missed opportunities. TLDR. Putting them in a single folder and passing them off as messages from a dude won't cut it. My ex was an amateur. Story 21. Blaming you for cheating. Blaming you for thinking about cheating, being attracted to others. Frequent disengagement from familiar intimacy. Conspicuously withholding details about recent events. Less eye contact. Also new intimacy techniques. You, edit, source, have cheated and been cheated on. Story 22. Well, if I told you what my soon-to-be ex was up to before I found out, you would think I'm a moron for needing so many red flags to finally admit it to myself. These aren't necessarily universal, but just in my experience, more effort in grooming. Oh, so you wear makeup now? Well, the more nights out with friends, needing to, I forgot to grab milk more than once a week, and then being gone for 2 hours and saying you were gone so long because sometimes you just need to unwind because the kids drive you crazy from being with them all day. But when you leave at night, all the kids are asleep already, and it's just me that's awake. Going from being a once-a-year drinker to purchasing adult beverage and keeping it in the refrigerator. Always on the cell phone. Always. Appears to be typing a lot on phone too, not just browsing Redding videos. Insane spike in number of messages, minutes per month on cell phone bill. Cell phone never set down, ever. Also just obviously being weird about it. 5 years of never leaving the kids to do an overnight away, to doing an entire weekend away alone, because kids make me crazy and need to unwind, see above. Then my friends who I haven't even been to a bar with asked me if I want an extra ticket to a romantic wine tour 3 hours away with overnight. That is what it took before I finally admitted it to myself. And finally, Getting busted because your chump-trusting husband got fed up and put a fudged GPS tracker in your van so he could catch your slut jerk with that loser homewrecker. Story 23. He had a best girlfriend. No biggie because me and her talked once and she seemed okay. He was texting her multiple times a day and I thought it was weird but didn't say anything. He got very defensive when my best guy friend died and I was in mourning crying my eyes out every night. We eventually moved in together and he started texting another one of his girlfriends. I eventually found provocative texts and pictures on his phone. I only stayed because he was my first and I could not bear living with my parents again. It's okay to have friends of the opposite intimacy, but my trust can only go so far. Story 24. Found another girl's hair in his bed. He blamed it on his housemate and said that his housemate and housemate's GF used his duvet for non-Aussies, and that's how the hair got there. Then there were hair ties, etc. around. Then I found a shirt in his cupboard that wasn't mine. He said it must have been mine, and if it wasn't, it'd be his mom's. Then I went through his phone and caught him out. Now he's engaged to be engaged to my cousin. Story 25. From personal experience as the cheater, I have to disagree with some of these people. A sudden increase in intimacy desire towards you. Having a new intimacy partner makes you feel sexier and hornier. They might be getting it from someone else, but out of guilt and convenience, there'll likely be more intimacy towards you as well in ways they weren't before. Story 26. Suddenly busy all the time going out with the lads, but there's always a reason you can't come, even though you know his friends and get on with them well. If you keep telling yourself he must still be into you and looking for little signs he's still interested, on some level you know you don't have his full attention anymore and you're trying to deny it. Oh, he bought me that CD I wanted. I must be imagining things. Nope, glitter in his bed. Fudge you, Matthew. At least you had good taste. If you're going to cheat, bang a chick wearing glitter. Story 27. Them accusing you of cheating or other bad behavior when you've done nothing wrong, them projecting their own misdeeds on you. Lying about little things to cover up big things. Are they a person who never shops for themselves but suddenly have new clothes, especially undergarments? Are they constantly spending money but can't account for it? Are they putting a 2 of miles on their car but can't explain why? Their family suddenly backs away from you. Either they're ashamed of the behavior or your SO has told them lies about you to justify their own behavior. Nose is always in the cell phone rather than paying attention to you. Contacts in the cell phone will have names of people you know it attached to phone numbers of their scandalous friends. If you really suspect cheating, scour your house and cars for a burner phone. I've heard of cheaters hiding them in the electrical panel of a house. My SO went so far as to have his teenage son get a second cell phone on his account to hide texts and calls from me. Story 28. I think the biggest indicator was my ex hiding his phone. One time in particular, I picked up his phone to look up something and he flipped. I mean, physically attacked me to get his phone back. I don't know why I didn't get the hint there. Also, the day before he left for boot camp, he wanted to go see his friend Skyla at 9 p.m. Yeah, no. Even his parents were like, what the shoot, dude? Your girlfriend is more important. Story 29. I have cheated. I was married for 5 years and have learned so much since then. I ended up leaving a wonderful person for a new wonderful person. And after much hurt, forgiveness, and growth, I am very blessed with an incredible family. Here are some signs. ISM male. Working late with vague or flippant explanation. Wouldn't your spouse want to be detailed if you probed? Note, I cheated with someone at work, hiding or being very careful with my phone and laptop, having a confidant that isn't you, unusual or sudden disinterest in intimacy, disinterest in long-term plans. Feel free to ask questions. Answer, having a confidant that isn't you gets me. Like no one wants to be that crazy paranoid person who won't let their spouse also have friends of the opposite intimacy. That said, I'm closing in on 40 and have seen a bit. Every single person I've known in real life who has cheated or been cheated on, it started with this, usually a coworker. And it usually does start totally innocent and platonically, but then they start confiding in and leaning on each other, and then one of them makes a move, and the rest is history. My husband had an affair in this manner, so I know my own issues are coming out here. So what's your take on this part? Going forward in your own life? Story 30. Mostly doing things they never used to do before. She was always on her phone when she previously never touched it when she was with me. Also had it tilted at that slight angle, so if I glanced over, I wouldn't see her screen. Would take about her just a friend a lot, then suddenly wouldn't even mention his name and would get quiet if I brought it up. Was always a relaxed and laid-back person who likes peaceful activities, then suddenly out of the blue started going to giant jerk parties every night and pulling pranks on the neighborhood. Used to have intimacy every night, if not multiple times a day, because we were both kinky freaks. Then suddenly didn't want any and would push me away subtly if I gave her anything more than a peck kiss. I think that's what hurt the most, being suddenly rejected by the person who used to desire you more than anything. Story 31. Suddenly guarding their phone when you never have shown interest in going through it, like getting up to get a drink and taking your phone with you, rather than leaving it on the coffee table. Never wanting to have intimacy, suddenly taking up a new hobby that you're never invited to participate in, and always takes their time in the weekend evenings. Then never giving much details when you ask how everything went. Never wanting to go do things with you anymore. Sitting around at home a lot while you go out. All around just becoming withdrawn. I am sure there are exceptions to all these, but these are he signs I noticed before I found out my now ex-husband was having an affair. Story 32. This is what I noticed in my relationship. I'm a lesbian BTW, so we are both girls. Suddenly changing her schedule when nothing big has happened in her life. She would start hanging out with friends every night for several hours and not have time to hang out with me. We were not living together at the time. Not telling me who was texting her during one of our dates. This was back in the time of flip phones, so I couldn't see her screen. She stopped talking about our future together. We had been planning on moving in together. Getting agitated over small questions that should have been no big deal. Things like, want me to drive you to class today? Not answering phone calls, and taking longer to respond to texts. Her friends suddenly stopped talking to me. She got pregnant. Excluding the last one, any of those on their own wouldn't have been a big deal probably. I didn't even put it all together at first. But when I saw that pregnancy test in her trash can and asked her about it, all of the pieces suddenly fell into place. Story 33. 1. They are just friends with this person that they talk about all the time. 2. They try every manipulation tactic in the book to convince you it's all in your head and you are paranoid. 3. They start making themselves up for work more than usual. 4. Their phones are glued to their hands and they hit the close tab button as soon as you get close. 5. They suddenly stop singing the praises of the just friend and increase the behavior of numbers 2 to 4. Example, how's just friend? You haven't mentioned her in a while. Oh yeah, don't really see her these days. She's on a different rota now. Have you seen my comb? 6. Instead of withdrawal from me, the more the affair went on, the more attentive he became. To reinforce his stance that I henpecked him with my unjustified paranoia. Turns out wasn't just all in my head. If it feels all wrong, it probably is. Always listen to your own instincts. And even if you're wrong, do you really want to be with someone who makes you feel like that anyway? Story 34. Recently, my girlfriend of 5 years cheated on me for about 2 months. While I was at work and interning, she would often go out with friends, but to weird places she never visited before. Also, not to be mean, but we don't have any friends. She was also very protective of her phone and never let me see it. And if I looked over at it, she made an effort to hide it, especially on Snapchat or Facebook, where she talked to this girl most often. Lastly, she stopped posting pictures of me on social media, whereas before she always posted pictures of me and us. In the end, like I said, she was cheating on me with a girl she worked with at Home Depot and lying for 2 months about where she was and who she was talking to. I didn't find out until I was on vacation with her and my friend from Germany who was visiting, and I took my girlfriend's phone to look up directions, and I saw a Facebook message from the girl saying, I want you. Long, painful, angry, drive home. Story 35. Also, life lesson they don't teach you. Look out for yourself because no one else will. Sometimes you gotta do shoot. You might not enjoy to protect yourself from people willing to lie and fudge you over simply because they are selfish, narcissistic, cheating assholes. I used to be like yourself, full of ideals and goodwill, until a series of life events showed me that in life, you will get walked all over for playing the part of the nice guy. I'm still a nice guy, but most certainly I'm no longer a pushover. If you suspect you are being cheated on, you darn well have the right to discover the truth, even if it means invading your suspected cheating partner's privacy. Answer? Yep, I detest the idea of invading each other's privacy. In an ideal world, snooping is never the right answer. But every time I have been suspicious and done it, in 3 different relationships, I have found things proving my suspicions were right. I worry how this will affect my future relationships. Risk losing my partner's trust by snooping, or risk not following my instincts and being fooled again. Story 36. When my ex cheated on me, he had been on his phone all the time, turning it away from me and going out a lot without me. I was friends with his friends. This wasn't enough to make me twig, though. I went away for the night to visit my best friend, who lived in another city. That night we were texting, and he asked me twice what time I was coming home. Still didn't think anything of it until I got home and the flat we shared was completely spotless and the bed sheets were changed. I instantly knew at that point he never did any housework unless I begged him to. He went in the shower and I went through his phone and I found texts to somebody who I thought was my friend about how they can't wait to do last night again. Scrolling up, they were talking about how they'd almost been caught by their friends on all those nights without me, etc. So yeah, fudge that guy. Story 37. They start explaining to you that the Facebook app isn't reliable. They weren't really ignoring you. They hadn't actually been up that late. They weren't online. They didn't see. Yeah, bro, Facebook invests a whole lot of fudge money into that app. They're talking to someone else, and they aren't fessing up to it. Story 38. A common theme among these comments is that the cheating partner seemed especially fearful of being cheated on. My last relationship ended with me constantly terrified and panicked that he was being unfaithful, which came from past experience with cheaters and having generally horrible boyfriends. Not because I was cheating, just something to keep in mind. IMO, not everyone who's afraid is guilty. Story 39. I guess I noticed when he wasn't as emotionally invested as I was. There were also many signs throughout our relationship. He didn't want to meet my parents at all and tried to keep our relationship low-key as hell. No one around him could know we were together. He is Colombian, so he would travel over there a lot. Every time he would travel over there, girls would post messages on his Facebook wall saying things like, "I miss you" or "I love you." He would check my phone constantly, but I couldn't even hold his. Mind you, I'm not the type of person who checks phones at all, as I find it rather tiring. He would manipulate me constantly and make me feel like crap when all I did was please him. One time he decided to pick a fight with me because I wouldn't have lunch with him. I was really busy, but I figured I could make the time to have some lunch with him. The day after the argument, I texted him, "Hey, let's have lunch," and he declined, making a huge deal about it. He said things like, "Oh, you've never had lunch with me. Why now?" I always knew he was cheating, but I never had the proof. Until one day he texted me saying he loved another girl, but that he wanted me to wait for him while he made a decision. My heart was so broken because I loved him to passing. The next day I texted him and broke it off. I decided I wasn't going to be a second choice. Months after, we had a conversation because I was seeking closure, and he admitted he cheated on me the whole time with various girls. To this day, this happened around 3 years ago, he begs me to get back with him, saying things like, "You're the best I've ever had." Sadly for him, I'm in an amazing relationship now and very much in love. I now realize what I felt for him wasn't truly love. Story 40. I noticed my boyfriend liking all the pictures of his ex-girlfriend and her current boyfriend that she had posted on Facebook. Confronted him, he denied. The ex-girlfriend's current boyfriend came to me and said, "So-and-so is cheating on me with your boyfriend." So, not really a sign, but yeah. Other boyfriend I glanced over when he was texting and saw him putting hearts but couldn't really see the text. So I just dropped it. Soon after we broke up, he was dating her. So not really signs, but more actual blatant shoot. Story 41. Unexplained changes are the best indicator. Look especially at intimacy behavior, the way they act with phones and computers, a lack of attention followed by too much attention, and unaccountable hostility. They may even accuse you of doing the cheating. I unfortunately saw all of these with my wife, but the light didn't go on until she asked me to not perform a specific intimacy act that night. It was an act I had never performed. I think she forgot who she was in bed with. Hope this helps and that it's not something you have to deal with. Story 42. For me, the signs that eventually added up to suspicion were 1. Staying late at work, frequently and uncharacteristically. She was a contractor and wasn't allowed to work more than 40 hours. So if she worked late too much, she had to take time off. It just didn't add up. 2. Texting an unusual amount, especially after arguments, venting to her affair. 3. Suddenly being very secretive and protective of her phone. She was the type where you couldn't call her sometimes because she would leave her phone random places and forget about it. Not after she started cheating. After then, her phone went everywhere with her. 4. One time she came home reeking of intimacy. 5. Her lies were believable for a long time, but eventually she couldn't keep track of them. I'd point out that some things didn't make sense, but she'd just deny that she ever said something different before and accuse me of being mentally unstable. That was the second one. The first one, I had her cell phone. Don't remember the exact reason, but I think it was so she could call me to pick her up from work, but mine wasn't working for some reason. And I got a text from a guy I had met the same time I met her that said, "Can I fudge you without a condom this time?" I confronted her about it, and she confessed to regularly sleeping with 5 different guys. TBH, I appreciated her honesty so much more than the second one, who convincingly lied about it for almost a year after being confronted. Story 43. sudden jealousy and accusations, needing to know who you're talking to at all hours, trying to cut you off from the opposite intimacy, trying to gaslight you into thinking you're doing something wrong when you question them about personality changes. Story 44. In my situation, it was a general gut feeling more than any one thing that stood out to me at the time. But upon reflection, I noticed these things happening. He started getting more interested in exercising and shopping for new clothes, taking a greater interest in his appearance than he usually did. He was keeping his phone on him more than normal. He changed his phone's password, which he had never done before. We had access to each other's phones and would go into them for innocuous reasons on occasion, photos, etc. This was all in the span of a week or two. And that last point is what tipped me off to question and look. I was sort of oblivious to the rest at the time. I know there is some controversy surrounding whether to look at your partner's phone browser history, email, what have you, and I would never recommend people look just because, as that can erode the trust established between the two of you. But if your gut is telling you something is wrong and you're noticing signs that something is wrong, I think it's okay at that point to get confirmation. My STB ex-husband turned out to be one hell of a liar and gaslighter, something I never would have expected based on who he was and our history together. Story 45. This may sound odd, but my boyfriend was suddenly very into playing words with friends. He was constantly playing, and it was just very out of character for him. Finally checked his words with friends, chat, and found out that's how he was communicating with the girl he was cheating on me with. I'll give him points for creativity, but nothing gets past me. Story 46. He's gay and just a friend that is coming over while you're working out of town. Don't be so selfish. Don't you want me to have friends? Then later, all our wedding photos are stuck under the bed. Why? Oh, she decided she didn't like the look of them or something. Constantly closing the chat windows when I walk by the computer. Phone calls ending quickly when I enter the room. Worked out of town and couldn't seem to get a hold of her many evenings. Never got to see any of her friends that she made in the new city we moved to. Like seriously, we would go all week with like one phone call. Saw a picture on her phone with her and a guy sitting at the local beach. Mentioned it made me feel uncomfortable. Just a friend. Would bring up how I was feeling uncomfortable with her hanging out with these guy friends I've never met and was told I was being selfish and don't I want her to have friends and to be happy. Accused me of cheating on her with my therapist, who I was seeing to try and sort myself out to be a better husband. She started giving better blowjobs. Oh, and the easiest was the email that guy 3 sent me basically telling on her. Sounds like she kept telling them she was in the process of getting a divorce or was separated. I was an idiot and couldn't admit to myself that it was happening, and once I found out, I figured it was my fault and I deserved it. Moved on since then. I did find out that one of the guys ended up committing tragic end, which when I hear that made me feel happy and content. I would never wish passing on someone, and I'm uncomfortable that I felt that way, but I can't deny my feeling of that. Wow, that kind of all came out. Story 47. Lots of phone use and suddenly being secretive with the phone, less intimacy, increased work-school obligations. They may claim to have joined a club or taken on additional responsibilities. Change of schedule, sense of distance in the relationship, weight, change of hairstyle. Story 48. Inconsistencies in their behavior. For instance, are they going from being very open with social media, phones, etc., to having passcodes locks on all of them? Suddenly less forthcoming about their day, not confiding in you as much. Having unexpected extended periods of long work days or excessive amounts of plans not including you. Inexplicably increasing their usage of their phone, Facebook, Snapchat, or their chat services. Suddenly overtly paranoid about you cheating on them with no real cause to suspect you of anything. In a friend circle where the others are almost all known for being unfaithful. This is less certain, but can be a sign. This thread is making me depressed. Story 49. She had a fairly high intimacy drive for most of the relationship. Towards the end, it totally tanked out. In hindsight, her intimacy drive didn't disappear. She just got it from somebody else. Later confirmed by a friend of hers that she was taken home by an ex after a girls' night out. Story 50. He was using my car, he changed the radio station, and a quarter of my tank of fuel was gone. We can't get the radio stations where we live. I always fill my tank. Saturday morning, if he drove it to his house and back mine, it would barely move the needle, but a quarter of a tank is a lot of petrol in my car. Also, he had shaved IV, known this man 12 hours. I always know, I just choose not to deal with it at the moment. Story 51. From what happened with my ex, the biggest one was taking his phone in the bathroom with him, when he showered or went to the toilet, and spending a suspiciously long time in the toilet multiple times a day, to the point where I thought he was having serious digestive issues. Plus, becoming really critical of me, snapping at me, no longer wanting to say I love you, and snatching his phone away aggressively when I asked if I could use the GPS on it. Oh, also suddenly doing new intimacy stuff, but I wouldn't read too much into that last one. They might have just read some intimacy tips in Men's Health or something. Story 52. When she is still friends with her ex and goes on a rave cruise with him that they had paid for from before they broke up and tells you that there is nothing to worry about, but breaks up with you right when she gets back because she had an epiphany. I saw it coming and still chose to stay ignorant because I see the good in people to a fault. Story 53. Hell, at least y'all have clues. I have a gut feeling she might be, but I have no clues. I can't talk to her because it seems like I'm bringing it up too much. Maybe past relationships got me messed up. Don't trust anyone. Keep your walls up and always be on your guard. Story 54. One thing I remember someone saying on one of these posts is, anything can look suspicious and anything can look innocent. I think a lot of it depends on the personality. Some of these examples are just how people are, but if it's out of character, that's different. Like being distant could be cheating, but it could also be because the person is going through something or the partner did something to upset them. Turning away their phone might mean their partner is always looking over their shoulder and they just want privacy. Story 55. They're very secretive with their phone. They tell you how much they dislike a certain person, but still hang out with them. Call you crazy if you think one of those people are interested in your partner. Also, if they start blowing you off to hang out with this other person. Source, cheated on 7 times. Story 56. When you take off work to surprise her with flowers at her app, the morning after she took you window shopping for engagement rings, only to walk into her room and find her naked, her fingering herself while getting face fudged by a guy 10 years older than her dad. And when you yell, "What the fudge is going on here?" she says, "Oops, busted." Story 57. Me and my now ex were talking about starting a family, so we go to the doctors to get my coil removed, and they have to do a few tests before they can. 2 weeks later, the doctor calls me. I've got chlamydia. We were together for 4 years, so Fudge knows how long I'd been carrying that. He wasn't around long enough to explain. Story 58. He needed a lot of validation psychically. He constantly justified his attractiveness by how many people have had intimacy with him, or at least attempt to hit him up. We started out as FWB, but I noticed how much he needed attention from women via apps like Tinder, texting, or in person. Story 59. I've been working the midnight shift for the better part of a year now, and my now ex-fiancé wasn't working. We had recently relocated to a small rural city of about 3,000, and the house next to ours was vacant. About 2 months after we'd moved in, a bachelor started renting the place next door. Really cool guy. Let's call him Todd. And I'd catch a black sedan parked out in front of his house pretty frequently. Turns out that Todd didn't own a car, but his buddy did. And his friend and my fiancé were getting busy while I was at work. I don't know how long Todd knew about it, or if he knew at all prior to telling me, but he broke the news to me a little over a month ago. I honestly should have realized something was up when she was suddenly always tired, too stressed out for intimacy, and on her phone all the time, giggling at what I thought was memes. Fudge you, Alyssa. Story 60. When you are both happy and seem content. Someone fudge it up not because they are unhappy or undersexed. They do this because real intimacy is hard and scary. So one or both tries to cover up their insecurities with physical intimacy with someone else because they can't deal with the emotional intimacy. We can't help but fudge up a good thing. Story 61. My mother and I picked up on the fact that my uncle was cheating because of a few key behavior changes. 1. Drank more than normal. You should have seen their recycle barrels full of beer bottles. 2. Started showering my cousins with random gifts all of the time, I think out of guilt. 3. Being very private about his phone. If you came anywhere near him while he was texting, he would immediately put it away or say he was talking to someone from work, which actually wasn't a lie. The woman was a coworker of his. But the icing on the infidelity cake was he invited her and her husband over to a family party and definitely was behaving differently. The husband didn't know BTW until the shoot hit the fan. Story 62. He was a deadbeat, verbally and mentally abusive jerk. I should have left long before he cheated. He never paid and always expected me to take care of him while he just spent all his money on adult beverage and plant substance. One night he didn't come home and I knew he had been hanging out with this girl who was just a friend. He came in the next morning, acting surprised I was there, then was all sweet like, "Let me take you to breakfast, baby." He paid. I knew from how sweet he was attempting to be that something was fishy. Story 63. When they start getting you to try doing specific sexy things that they heard feel better or saw in adult content without having expressed a desire to spice things up or ever having seemed like they didn't enjoy what you've already been doing. Likewise, if they start putting you in positions so that they don't have to see your face. Story 64. You know they're cheating if all of a sudden she dolls herself up for no reason, like puts on more perfume or puts on her makeup different. Then there's the classic, oh, don't worry, we're just friends at work and plus he's gay. Psh. Yeah, right, gay, my jerk. Story 65. Getting as protective of their phone as if it was an external male body part or female body part that they're afraid might be accidentally assaulted if anyone else touches it or even looks at it. Getting really angry instead of concerned when you apologizingly tell them something they're doing bothers you and comes off a little sketchy to you. Story 66. They are constantly suspicious of you when you have done nothing to warrant suspicion. They're being a shoot person, and in order to rationalize it, they reason that you have to be being just as shoot, consistently unwilling to talk about what they do when you're not around. Being incredibly nice and attentive to you for a day or two at a time, then slowly sliding down to reserved tolerance or lukewarm affection. Maybe a day of coldness out of the blue, then right back to attentive and nice. 3 relationships, cheated on in all 3, 2 of whom actually cheated on me multiple times. These all occurred in some fashion in basically all of them. Story 67. If you hear from anyone that they suspect or know you've been cheated on, believe it, especially if you have even the faintest suspicion. As someone who has been cheated on and who found out I was the other woman, separate occasions, I'd also like to say that it is much easier for you to decide to trust your SO, a person you have already decided to trust, than anyone else. A stranger, other woman, even a friend or family member. Odds are that if you are being cheated on, the person doing the cheating is not going to be the person to tell you and will likely come up with a good enough story to appear innocent. A lot of people have already talked about them appearing paranoid or suddenly attacking you. They might also appeal to your empathy by playing the victim card. This all sounds easy enough to identify from a third-party perspective, but emotions make it easy to justify the words and actions of the people we care about. I honestly hope this isn't what is happening to you, because it sucks to go through. I hope you're able to assess your situation with a clear mind and do what's best for you in the long term. Edit. Other people have mentioned this, but their phone. If they are checking it a ton, taking any steps to cover the screen, or mention that it annoys them that you look over their shoulder or check their phone, especially if you aren't doing those things, huge red flag that they're hiding something. Story 68. I was in a kind of long-distance relationship with a guy. He didn't want to make it official because it would break his heart, but promised that I was the only one for him and that we had a future together. We mostly met in when he was staying in hotels near me for work. His colleagues always acted a little weird around me, and one of them took me aside and said, "I don't want to speak ill of my friend, but don't fall in love with him." I told him it was too late, as I was already head over heels. A few weeks later, I visited my not-quite boyfriend at home for the first time, where he lived in an apartment above his mom's. He introduced us and carried me out of the room while she watched with an angry face. I thought she just didn't like me. He showed me his bathroom, which was full of women's stuff. He said his mom kept her products there because her bathroom was broken. I never noticed she didn't use his bathroom the whole time I was there. The rest of his flat was also very feminine, with drawings and roses and other girly stuff. I like feminine guys, so I was thrilled. I was also an idiot. You've probably guessed it already. Turns out he didn't live there alone, but with his fiancée. There were many signs I hadn't wanted to see or had brushed off as paranoia. When I look back, it's painfully obvious I was the other woman, but at 20 years old, I was very naive. Story 69. He became increasingly paranoid and cranky all the time, just snapping at me for no unprovoked reason. Started spending more time outside, smoking and starting locking his phone. And as stupid as this sounds, the biggest giveaway was my gut feeling. You know, the feeling you don't actually know what's wrong, but your gut is giving off really bad vibes, that something is not right. That. Story 70. Mine always had his phone on him, staying up till 3 a.m. in the garage watching YouTube. Sudden spike in adult content usage, mentioning a coworker's name more often, and blowing small arguments out of proportion. Also, I had just had our daughter, and on one of our first outings out with her after birth, he took pictures of me without my knowledge. Of course, I looked miserable and sad in the pics, but I think he took them to show his crackhead coworker how miserable I was to further validate his cheating. Also, he kept on telling me he wasn't cheating, even though I never asked. Story 71. Attention! Serious tag notice jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted in any comment, parent or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an MA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit, message compose, to askreddit, if you have any questions or concerns. Story 72. Consistently accusing you of cheating, losing interest in them. I was with a guy for a long while he was dating another girl, unknown to either of us, and he was always so paranoid about me hanging out with mutual male friends and thinking I flirted with customers at work. As well, if I wasn't super affectionate and flirty with him, he would start to be like, "You don't even like me. You obviously aren't into me. You aren't even trying to make this work," and that kind of shoot. When me and his other girlfriend found this out, she said all the same things about him. I think it's a manifestation of guilt by trying to prove that the person he was with didn't care about him so that he could justify his cheating mixed with paranoia because he knows firsthand how easy it is to cheat on someone without them knowing. Story 73. I haven't read the comments, so this may have been mentioned already. This is a random one that's happened to me on 2 separate occasions. If you both have iPhones, when you send an iMessage, it will say delivered or read, but if it doesn't say anything, it can be a sign that they've blocked your number. It can also be a sign that they have no signal, so don't jump on it completely, but keep an eye on it. Happened to me when my boyfriend of 2 years cheated on me. When he was with her, he blocked my number, and when he was with me, he blocked her. Also happens recently with a girl I was seeing. Story 74. Generally becoming distant, her not noticing the little things anymore, less frequent intimacy, a general annoyance towards you if you do anything slightly unsatisfactory, etc. When you're being cheated on, you can just tell 99 of the time if you look. Story 75. Phone behavior can be a sign, especially if these things start happening partway through a relationship. They aren't instant red flags alone, but if seen with other signs, or if the behavior clearly changes, phone face down, phone leaves the room when they do, never have any notifications on the lock screen when they, very obviously, check the time in front of you, but always seem to be typing a message when the phone is facing the other way. And a bonus, go away with friends, but never have any pictures of it on social media. Story 76. For a lot of people, there aren't any because some cheaters are smart and leave no trail. Cheating isn't about hurting anyone. They just want to get their rocks off with a person they have no obligation to deal with on a regular basis.